Rome's rise to empire after the Punic Wars. The Punic Wars, 264 to 146 BCE, were a transformative period in Roman history, marking the Republic's transition from a regional power on the Italian peninsula to a Mediterranean superpower. Rome's ultimate victory over Carthage in the Third Punic War laid the foundation for its rise as an empire that would dominate much of the known world for centuries. The Punic Wars not only eliminated Rome's greatest rival but also reshaped Roman society, military, and politics, leading to its imperial expansion. This analysis explores how Rome's success in the Punic Wars set the stage for its rise as an empire, the key developments that enabled its growth, and the lasting impact on Roman governance and society. 1. The military evolution of Rome. A shift in military power. Rome's victory over Carthage in the Punic Wars demonstrated the effectiveness of its military system. While Carthage relied on mercenaries from different regions, Rome's army was built on a foundation of disciplined citizen soldiers who were fiercely loyal to the Republic. This distinction gave Rome a significant advantage as it continued its military expansion. Professionalization of the Roman army. The Punic Wars revealed the need for a more permanent and professional standing army. During and after these wars, Roman military reforms laid the groundwork for the creation of a full-time professional army, particularly with the Marian reforms, 107 BCE, which allowed landless citizens to join the military. This increased the size and loyalty of the Roman forces, as soldiers were rewarded with land and citizenship, cementing their allegiance to Rome. Adaptability in warfare. The Punic Wars, especially the Second Punic War against Hannibal, forced Rome to adapt its military tactics. Hannibal's strategic brilliance pushed the Romans to reconsider their rigid formations and develop new methods of warfare, including the Fabian strategy of avoiding direct conflict and focusing on attrition. These experiences helped shape Rome into a more versatile and effective fighting force in subsequent wars. The conquest of new territories. With Carthage eliminated as a rival, Rome turned its attention to other regions of the Mediterranean. The acquisition of new territories, such as Sicily, Spain, and North Africa, provided the Republic with rich resources and new bases of power. This expansion was not only military but also economic, as Rome gained access to new markets, valuable agricultural lands, and natural resources like precious metals from Spain. Rome's dominance in the Western Mediterranean. The end of the Second Punic War gave Rome control over much of the Western Mediterranean. Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica were taken over as provinces, providing Rome with grain and other essential resources to support its growing population and army. Rome's victory in Spain against the Carthaginians also laid the foundation for further Roman control over the Iberian Peninsula. Expansion into the Eastern Mediterranean. Rome's successes in the West allowed it to focus on the Hellenistic kingdoms in the East. After the Punic Wars, Rome became more involved in the politics of Greece and the Eastern Mediterranean, eventually defeating Macedon and the Seleucid Empire in a series of wars. These conquests culminated in the annexation of Greece and the destruction of Corinth in 146 BCE, the same year Carthage fell. This marked Rome's dominance over the entire Mediterranean basin, often referred to as Mare Nostrum, RC. 2. The economic and social impact of Rome's expansion. Wealth and the growth of latifundia. The aftermath of the Punic Wars brought vast wealth to Rome through the spoils of war, new provinces, and the expansion of trade networks. However, this wealth was not evenly distributed and led to significant social changes. Rise of the latifundia. Large estates, known as latifundia, began to dominate the Italian countryside. These estates were owned by wealthy Roman elites and worked by slaves, many of whom were captured during Rome's wars of expansion. The growth of these estates led to the displacement of small farmers, who could not compete with the cheap labor provided by slaves. This created a new class of landless citizens who moved to the cities, particularly Rome, in search of work. Increased slave labor. Rome's conquests, particularly in the Punic Wars, resulted in an influx of slaves from conquered territories. These slaves were used in agriculture, construction, and domestic work, further increasing the gap between the wealthy elite and the poorer citizens. The reliance on slave labor also contributed to economic inequalities that would later fuel social unrest in the Republic. The rise of a commercial empire. With control of the Mediterranean, Rome's economy expanded significantly. Rome became the center of a vast trade network that connected Europe, Africa, and the Near East. The wealth generated from this trade helped finance further military campaigns and solidified Rome's status as the dominant power in the ancient world. Control of trade routes. By controlling key ports and territories around the Mediterranean, Rome secured vital trade routes that facilitated the movement of goods such as grain, wine, olive oil, and metals. This control not only enriched Rome but also allowed it to exert economic influence over its neighbors and allies. 3. Political changes and the path to empire. Transformation of the Roman Republic. The victories in the Punic Wars significantly altered the political landscape of Rome. With the expansion of territory came the need for new forms of governance, leading to an increase in the power of the Senate and military generals. The growing influence of these figures, combined with Rome's newfound wealth and territorial control, gradually shifted the balance of power in the Republic. Expansion of Roman provincial rule. As Rome acquired new territories, it established provinces, each governed by Roman magistrates or proconsuls. These provinces were responsible for supplying Rome with resources, taxes, and troops. The administration of these vast territories created new opportunities for Roman elites to gain wealth and influence, but it also led to corruption and abuse of power. Rise of military generals. The wars of expansion elevated the status of military generals, who became increasingly powerful figures in Roman politics. Generals such as Scipio Africanus were celebrated as heroes and gained considerable political influence due to their military successes. This trend would continue into the later Republic, where generals like Julius Caesar and Pompey would use their military power to challenge the authority of the Senate and ultimately lead to the fall of the Republic. Social unrest and reform movements. The social inequalities created by Rome's expansion fueled internal unrest. The growing wealth gap between the elites and the lower classes, along with the displacement of small farmers, led to calls for reform. This unrest became more pronounced as returning soldiers found themselves without land or work, and the growing population of landless citizens in Rome increased political tensions. The Gracchi reforms. In the 2nd century BCE, Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, two brothers who served as tribunes, proposed reforms to address the economic inequality by redistributing land to the poor and curbing the power of the wealthy elite. However, their efforts were met with fierce resistance from the Senate and eventually led to their deaths. The failure of these reforms contributed to the growing instability of the Republic. 4. The final destruction of Carthage and symbolic victory. The Third Punic War, 149 to 146 BCE, was less about territorial gain and more about ensuring that Carthage could never rise again as a rival to Rome. The war culminated in the siege and destruction of Carthage in 146 BCE, where the city was razed to the ground and its surviving population was sold into slavery. Symbolic triumph. The destruction of Carthage symbolized Rome's total domination over the Western Mediterranean and sent a clear message to any potential rivals that resistance to Roman authority would lead to utter annihilation. It also marked the end of an era, as Carthage had been one of the last significant powers capable of challenging Rome. Conclusion: Rome's path to empire. The Punic Wars were a turning point in Roman history, propelling Rome from a regional power into an empire that would dominate much of the known world for centuries. The defeat of Carthage removed Rome's greatest rival and gave the Republic control over vast new territories, wealth, and trade networks. However, the consequences of this expansion, social inequality, the rise of powerful military generals, and political corruption, laid the groundwork for internal strife that would eventually lead to the fall of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. Rome's ability to adapt, both militarily and politically, allowed it to exploit the opportunities presented by its victories in the Punic Wars. This adaptability, combined with the wealth and resources gained from its conquests, made Rome the dominant force in the Mediterranean for centuries, shaping the course of Western civilization. Rome's interest in the Eastern Mediterranean grew after its victory over Carthage. The Hellenistic world, divided into several powerful kingdoms such as Macedon, the Seleucid Empire, and Ptolemaic Egypt, was a region of immense wealth and cultural significance. The Punic Wars had demonstrated Rome's capacity for sustained military campaigns, and the political instability of the Hellenistic kingdoms provided Rome with an opportunity to intervene. The Macedonian Wars. Rome had already begun its involvement in the Greek world during the Punic Wars, but it intensified its efforts after the Second Punic War. The Macedonian Wars, 214 to 148 BCE, were a series of conflicts between Rome and the Kingdom of Macedon, which was one of the strongest Hellenistic powers. Rome's victory in these wars, culminating in the decisive Battle of Pydna in 168 BCE, led to the subjugation of Macedon and the eventual annexation of Greece as a Roman province in 146 BCE, the same year Carthage fell. ChatGPT ko the Mac Loy. Hey Kim Tra Kak